This is episode 5 of the FilmTell podcast. I'm your ghost with the most, Tyler DePerro. Today's guests are the Cinema Treasures Instagram account, the 8-Ball Movie Nights at the 8-Ball Saloon in Ann Arbor. Our featured musician is Mirror Vein. Let's just talk about movies, Dean.
Okay.
Okay, but you're not going to respond. You're just going to hear me talk. Okay, so we're just going to, it's the end of summer. Labor Day always marks the unofficial end of summer. So we're just going to go through and review movies that came out this summer. So we'll talk about Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, and the sequel to Mad Max Fury Road by George Miller. And I liked it a lot. It didn't do so well at the box office, but you could tell George Miller's a visionary director, and everything is so thought out and precise. And if you liked Mad Max Fury Road, this is a prequel to that. And even though it looks by the trailers kind of the same kind of movie, but it's totally an origin story to Furiosa, and she doesn't really come into the movie till about the midway point. And Chris Hemsworth as the villain does a great job with that fake obnoxious nose. But yeah, it's a fun time, and we get a little origin shot of Mad Max in the movie, but unfortunately it did not do well enough for a sequel. So we got what we got, But another highlight of the summer was A Quiet Place Day One, directed by the same director as The Pig, and it's just a basic alien invasion story with a cat and looking for pizza during the apocalypse. Like, just kept it simple and wasn't anything. It was just a nice basic story among an alien invasion. I thought it was a great kind of turn in the series to make it more focused in and not just like this big alien apocalyptic story. Twisters, of course, this summer. Just a Hallmark movie with tornadoes, if you like that kind of thing. I didn't mind the country music soundtrack. I did see it at the Screen X theater, where like the screen's in front of you, but also along the side. So it has like this, like the walls are a screen, and they have projectors on each side. And it was fun to do it once, but I don't need to see a movie like that again, because it is cropped. You're not seeing, like, you have to kind of turn your head and see the whole image, or the screen, it will kind of go between the front screen, and then during the action scenes, it'll go to all three sides. But it was cool, but I would not recommend that. I did see A Quiet Place Day One in the Dolby Atmos, and the sound on that was incredible. You could really feel it, the bass during that movie. And what else? Longlegs, of course. Everybody loved that with Nicolas Cage. Dean, did you see? You didn't see Longlegs.
I did.
You did. Yeah, you didn't. You didn't like it.
Not a huge fan.
Yeah,
I also sat in the front row.
Yeah.
And I couldn't really see the full.
Why were you you're in the front row?
It was sold out.
It was sold out.
Yes.
Wow. That's crazy that Longlegs was sold out. I liked Longlegs just because I like Nicolas Cage. I like the director Osgood Perkins. I liked his Hansel and Gretel. But the kind of the bluntness of the violence and the kind of the crime story, like it has kind of like a Silence of the Lambs vibe going for it. The doll's introduction, I thought I was not on board at first, but once it kind of all came together, it made more sense. Yeah, and then like Deadpool Wolverine, crowd pleaser, fan favorite. Played all the everybody. Anytime you go see a comic book movies, you're always thinking of like, I wish they did this. I wish they did that. Like, I wish they had this moment. And Deadpool and Wolverine just did every one of those moments that you wanted from a comic book movie, and a lot of fun little references to unmade comic book movies like Gambit and other we we did see Sasquatch Sunset,
Yes.
and it was only a few of us in the theater, but I'm a fan of those directors that made that movie. Um, it's two brothers, and they've done Damsel. They did Kimiko, Treasure Hunter, but yeah, Sasquatch Sunset. Not a lot of talking, and a lot of Bigfoot interaction, and yeah, if you have, you need a little bit of tolerance to sit through just Sasquatches doing their thing. But that's a good highlight. I don't think it got much play, but and Challengers I liked a lot. You know, if I've never seen tennis portrayed in that kind of that way that Luca Gordito filmed it in the high energy and kind of the playing what's her name? You know, Zendaya playing the two guys against themselves and cutting back in time and forward in time, and the music by Trent Reznor. And what other movies came out this? Oh, we saw The Crow. If you hold the original Crow to a certain standard, you might want to skip this movie. But if you don't have any baggage of that going in, you might appreciate and like The Crow for this version of it. And I was kind of let down by Maxine. I don't know. I wanted to like it a lot more, but I did like that series altogether, X, Pearl and Maxine. But I liked X more. X the first one the best. X. It was fun. It was good. I got it. I understand like the Maxine. I don't know. It just was fine.
I agree with
Yeah. But you know, did the ending actually happen or not? But I don't think that really goes out of their way to have that questionable ending. Like, did she, you know, when she's gonna kill her dad in front of the Hollywood sign, and then it cuts to her, and she's a celebrity on the talk show. I didn't take that as a fantasy moment like the end of Taxi Driver. I took it literally like that happened. But I mean, still we're seeing. The Omen, I know. Was that a summer movie? I don't know if it's a summer movie, but we could talk about it though. The first Omen, I was shocked how good that was. Did you see the Omen?
The original?
No, the new Omen.
With you, right?
We did see it together. Yeah, we did see it together. Yeah. So, yeah, I like the first Omen a lot. The new Omen it's on Hulu now. I think I appreciate all the Disney. Once Disney bought the Fox catalog, their sequels to some of to Hellraiser or to the Omen or to Predator, giving directors that have a vision to these kind of franchises that have maybe gotten a little bit stale, and having them bring a certain look to them. But the first Omen had kind of a Suspiria, possession thing going for, you know, the movie Possession. Just the style, the surrealness of it. I could have not done without the references to the original Omen towards the end, or even like the very end where it felt like a Marvel movie where the priest comes in and he's like, "There's more to be done in the Omen universe." It just felt like baiting for a sequel for the second Omen. But I would highly recommend the first Omen if you're a fan of horror movies. Do we talk about not liking Cuckoo is fine? Cuckoo? You didn't see it,
No,
but
I
I didn't. Yeah, it was okay. I don't know. If you liked Cuckoo, let me know why it's good.
Okay.
Yeah, but The Idea of You. Did you see that movie? I think it's on Amazon with Anne Hathaway being like it's like a mom fan fiction story based on somebody wrote like a fan script or fan story about dating. What's that guy's Harry Styles? So Anne Hathaway is like this mom going to Coachella, and her daughter wants to meet this Harry Styles type rock star, but then she's like doesn't go or something. So then Anne Hathaway does the meet and greet anyway, and then she meets him, and then like she's like a super fan, and like they start chatting, and then no, she has to use the bathroom, and she can't find a bathroom, so she uses his trailer. And then she comes out of the bathroom in his trailer, and he's like, "What are you doing here?" And like that's the meet cute of the whole movie. And the guy that they cast for Harry Styles is so boring and doesn't look like he has like these fake tattoos on him. They look like they're wearing him. Like he doesn't look like he's a rock star at all. The best part is when they're in the hotel, they have like a fun getaway, and they're ordering room service, and she goes, "I definitely want the cookie plate." But yeah, she's delusional. She's cuckoo. Like she abandons her whole life to hang out, to go on this like tour with him. And there's that scene where they're at the pool, and all the rock star group, like the members, had like their 20-year-old girlfriends, and she's there, and she's like realizing how she's like doesn't belong there. Like she's like made this mistake, and it's like, yeah, girl, this is weird. And the ending, she owns like an art gallery, and then he shows up, and just I don't know.
You have the most information about this movie.
I'm skipping over Ullman and Twisters for the idea of you. Over Maxine. I didn't talk about anything about Maxine. Just it was like fine. It just got to me. Like the movies that push my buttons are the ones that don't go all the way. Like Maxine knows the style-wise, it knows how to push the style. I mean, for me, it didn't. It like almost got perfectly the balance of style and what it was supposed to do. But when movies don't know what they are, and they don't either do too little or they don't go up to the line, that's where I'm gonna talk about. I'm gonna get behind. Get frustrated about it. And Inside Out 2, I saw it twice. I liked the second time, but it worked. It's like one of the highest grossing animated movies of all time, but it was just worth seeing. Inside Out 2. Okay, so Dean, I'm going to pitch you my Ratatouille 2 script idea. Let's talk about Inside Out 2. So Ratatouille, the first Ratatouille, when did that come out? Was that 2007? Okay, so 2007 Ratatouille. This is the sequel. So, Remy, the rat, the main character of Ratatouille, it's now been, let's say it's been 20 years since the first Ratatouille. And Remy's this famous chef. He has a reality show like Emerald on the Food Network. He has frozen food at Walmart. He's a celebrity judge on all these shows. And he's, of course, like had a family by now and has kids. And his kids might be like, in their 20s or early late teens or whatever. But they all kind of live in the shadow of Remy. And it's just implied that they're going to be chefs and be part of follow Remy in his steps of being a chef and being part of this career he's built up for him and for his family. And his oldest son, he's expecting him to take over for him once he retires or moves on from being a chef. And I think Ratatouille 2 could be about legacy and what it means to have legacy. For Remy, his legacy is being a chef, being a famous chef. His passion was his legacy. And maybe like that legacy isn't so much about a career, but family. And his son might not want to be a chef like him, like maybe he wants to do something else in his life. and Remy like letting go of that, like this it's built all this up, and it's like maybe it's not meant to continue with, maybe like the legacy is like his kids having their own life, not following in Remy's steps, you know, like that. I think that's maybe like what Ratatouille should be about, is like the first one's about finding your passion and knowing when like you don't like forcing onto somebody else or your family, or like you're expecting it to continue on once you've died, or like continue on, but like maybe like when to let go of that. So I think that's the sequel to Ratatouille. Is more of an emotional.
Is Remy the rat? Is he a rat?
Yeah, Remy's a rat, the main character.
But rats only live up to 2 years.
But in Ratatouille, we put a 0 at the end of that, so it's 20 years. Oh yeah, the TV that you gotta watch. I saw the TV Glow. I'd recommend that for anybody that kind of grew up in the 90s with Nickelodeon or Are You for the Dark or Goosebumps, and how it kind of uses nostalgia as a horror movie, of being like kind of being attached to a certain show you saw as a kid, and how you age in the show, how the show isn't how it was when you were a kid, and how people can be obsessed around a show. And if you're like watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer or Degrassi or Are You for the Dark, or these kind of shows that have kind of fans around them. And there's a fun little cameo with the actors of Pete and Pete in it as these ghostly ghouls that show up, and I was the only one in the theater that was like, there's Pete and Pete. But that's kind of the point of the movie, is like how nostalgic, like it's like this ghost that haunts you and you age, and it does, and like the show doesn't change, but like your perspective of the show changes, and how it was scary as a kid, and then it's not scary anymore. It's cheesy, and like the costumes are cheesy, and how the movie does that. Like it shows you when they see it for the first time how it looks, and when they see it now, and you're just like, this is the show that they were watching, and how you see the format change, how they saw it on TV when it was broadcasted, and then you see towards the end of the movie where it's now streaming, and the main character's now just like hooked in and tuned in, and he escapes into it. Like you can't get away from it anymore. And the soundtrack's great as well. So here's my interview with Keith. He has an Instagram account called Cinema Treasures, where he goes around the country documenting movie theaters, old and new. Let's go to that interview now.
Sure. So I'm Keith Schlodweiler, and the person behind the Cinema Treasures Instagram account. I should mention, not the Cinema Treasures website. That I'm not associated with cinematreasures.org. I post my own photography on Instagram under Cinema Treasures, yes.
And how long have you been doing the Cinema Treasures Instagram account?
Oh gosh, when did I start the Instagram? I had my own Instagram first, and I started peppering it with movie theater photos, and then at some point just realized, there's plenty of material here to start its own account. And so when was that? That would have been probably, at this point, I think about 11 years ago. So what puts us back at 2012 or so.
Where did you start documenting movie? I mean, what do you remember a certain city where you started?
Yeah, so for me, it started, the seed was really planted when I was a kid, right? I grew up in a very small town, a town of about 2,000 people in Madison, Minnesota. Most people haven't heard of it, but it's on the western border of Minnesota. It's actually only about 10 miles from South Dakota. So very, very small town, but there was this old Art Deco movie theater there called The Grand. And that's what I grew up going to in my preteen years, going to the movies there. And there's actually also, they showed movies also at the public library where my mom worked. And they showed it at this place called the Prairie Arts Center. So there were actually, for such a small town, there were plenty of opportunities to see movies. But the Grand was really the one that captured my imagination, just because of the decor. It was just so interesting and colorful, and it glowed while the movie was playing. Sometimes it was just very, very cool. That's where it started, I think. When I was around 13, my parents moved to a slightly bigger town, and we were lucky enough to live about 2 blocks from the movie theater in that town. And so I used to go to that all the time. I saw, the same movie 3 times, while it was playing during its run. Yeah. So that's kind of where it started. And then flash forward to more of my adult life, I moved to New York City eventually. I had a couple of stops along the way, working as a librarian. That's my background. And I got a job for an organization that had a network of libraries all across the country, several hundred of them. And my job was running that network. And so I, about 4 or 5 times a year, would get into a plane, go fly into some city, get a rental car, drive 1,000 miles in some direction and stop at these locations in between doing trainings and the like. And one of the very first trips I took was into Montana. And a coworker of mine was from that area. And she says, if you're going to Montana and you're going to be anywhere near Anaconda, Montana, you have to go see the Washoe Theater. The Smithsonian ranked as one of the 10 most beautiful theaters in the country. I did go check it out. It lived up to the billing. It is an amazing theater. And then it was just a matter of, well, what else is out there? And I had the opportunity because I was doing all of this travel. I would, every night I was traveling on to a different city, and along the way I would stop and see what theaters were there. And so that's really where it started in earnest. But again, the seed was planted years and years ago as a kid, going to those movies at the Grand, at the Public Library and Prairie Art Center. People ask me a lot how many I visited, and I never counted until very, very recently. And I now figure, now these are not all currently operating theaters. Some of them are churches or other types of functions. About 3,300 that I've seen at this point. So a lot of them start to blend together a bit, but there certainly are some that do stand out. And among those, there was one in a place called Rural Retreat, Virginia, which is the far western part of Virginia state, not West Virginia. And there is this drive-in there I knew very little bit about when I was driving up to it. But as we're driving up, my wife and I were noticing that there is a sort of a white picket fence around the screen. And then we notice there's a porch built into the side of the screen. And then it turns out that that movie theater screen, drive-in screen, was built originally as not just a drive-in, but also as a house. So the people who ran that movie theater, that drive-in, lived in the movie theater drive-in screen. And they happened to be there. They had this was right after the switch to digital, so they had kind of gotten out of the business at that time. They were just not in it anymore, but they were out working the yard. They were super nice, and they, talked to us, and they let us look inside, and it was just amazing to see that kind of thing. So that's one that definitely stands out. There was another one, and I won't mention where it was, because I don't want to get anybody in trouble here. But this is one of those that I showed up to on an early off day, like a Tuesday morning or something, and wasn't expecting to get in, but I happened to be photographing the outside, and a woman walks by, and it turns out that she was the ex-wife's, or rather the owner's ex-wife. And she's like, he's in there if you want to, call him. And so she gave me the number. I called in and got in. At first he seemed a little off-put by what was going on, but he eventually warmed up and kind of got what I was doing. And at a certain point, you felt that he started to trust me. So he's, saying, come here, let me show you something. Brought me downstairs through this long passageway down in the basement. And then we turned this corner. He's like, oh, and there's my alligator. And I was like, oh, an alligator. I took a few pictures and kind of walked on before I was like, oh my God, there is a live alligator in the basement of this currently operational movie theater. I don't know if the people who go see movies there know it, but there is an alligator in the basement. So that was definitely one I remember. Last year, I think this was after I saw you actually in Michigan. I visited most of the state of New Mexico, got to see the movie theater in Roswell, which is now the International UFO Museum and Research Center. So that was kind of interesting because that is housed in a former movie theater, and just kind of that juxtaposition of those two things was just amazing. And then it was right around the time Oppenheimer was released, and I actually got to go to see the premiere there at Los Alamos. So that was also quite cool to be able to do that. I actually spent a good chunk of the beginning of the pandemic when I couldn't really go anywhere. Again, I live in New York City. And so for most of that first part of that pandemic, I was here in this apartment, hunkered down and not going anywhere. And so I just went to the Cinema Treasures website, which again, I'm not associated with, but it is an excellent, excellent resource to find out not just what theaters are currently operating, but ones that may have then have operated for maybe a couple years in the 1920s or so, and then closed down and became something else, and now it's a church or it's a coffee house or whatever it might be. They're really, really good at documenting that kind of thing. It's a user generated kind of site, and so it's not completely comprehensive. There are some that I found that aren't on that site, but it's really, really good at that. And I spent, like I said, the first part of the pandemic really researching all 50 states and just going to each one and finding out, well, does it still exist? And so I use that in combination with Google Maps, Street View specifically. Sometimes you'd have to, move a couple blocks down, using Google Street View, and then you'd see, okay, it does exist. There is something there to see. But it was a laborious process actually to go through and do that. It took me several months, but did finally do that. So now whenever I want to go anywhere, I can very quickly pull together a route. So I just sort of look through them and see which ones are of primary interest. Like these are the ones you absolutely have to go to. And then from there, you kind of have a route more or less designed. And then you're like, well, okay, what are maybe the secondary or tertiary ones that you might want to see along the way or that aren't too far from that route, and just sort of plan it out that way. I mean, there are some that I know that I want to get inside of. And so I will plan that accordingly, looking at what days they're open, what times of night or day, whatever, they might be open so that I'm more able to get inside. But as I've said, I'm so surprised at how lucky I've been in able to get in on these off times. I can't explain it. It just sometimes happens. Well, it happens a lot, actually. I will say too that it sometimes frustratingly happens where I'm not able to get into one because it's closed on a Wednesday, right? And I'm there on that day, and I just kind of have to keep moving on. And that's part of the fun of it, really. It's a little bit of luck of the draw. If it's something that I absolutely want to go back to, I'll make a point of doing that.
Yeah. I think that's how we met. I don't think we were open just yet.
Yeah, exactly.
When we came in.
Exactly right. And then and a lot of people see me, photographing the outside of it. And there's with you were inside the cinema,
Yeah.
but other times this happened where the theater owner was in the restaurant across the street having breakfast or whatever, and they see me, and then I get, sort of the eye a lot from some of the, like, what is this person doing kind of thing? Because it does, I mean, in all honesty, it does sometimes look like I'm scoping out the place, just because of the way I approach it and photograph it sometimes. Yeah. Or maybe I just have that look. I don't know. But when you can get inside, though, I mean, like the Howl Theater, your theater, for instance, I mean, you had so many details and just artifacts just all throughout that lobby. It was so amazing. And that's the kind of thing I really love, is that when you find somewhere where there's that real love of cinema, as opposed to, say, bare walls. And that's fine too. But I will go to sometimes the AMCs or the chain theaters or the mall theaters, because I have found that sometimes, there was one that comes to mind, I forget exactly where it is, but there was one that I went to that was just a typical mall movie theater. I wasn't expecting too much, but when you went in there, there was a local artist who had done these murals all throughout the inside of that theater, and movie related mural things. So that was something you're not going to find anywhere else. And it was really, really rewarding. So I figure, I'm wherever I am, I'm already there. So I might as well stop by and see what's there. You were in the beginning kind of asking how I got started and all of that. And I think at a certain point, you realize that a lot of these are disappearing. There have been instances where, I pull up to what I think is going to be a theater. The GPS says you've arrived at your destination on the right, and you look over there and there's a hole in the ground. And I talked to the locals there, and they said it was just knocked down 2 weeks before. There was another one in Pennsylvania that I pulled up to, and literally as I pull up, the wrecking ball is knocking it down. So unfortunately, a lot of these are disappearing. There are a lot that I photographed over the years that are no longer there. So part of this is just a documentation exercise, just to make sure that some of these places are documented, because unfortunately, as I say, so many are disappearing.
Yeah. And like I always drive through a small town, and I can kind of always feel the sense of it. I'm like, there's a theater here somewhere, and then like you'll drive past a tool store, and it's like, oh, that Art Deco tile, that was where the movie theater was at. Or
absolutely right. Yeah.
Like
my wife has joined me on a lot of these trips, and she's really developed a great eye Like when we pull into a town, she said, "Oh, there it is. I can see it right now. The theater, the former theater," because you get that sense of them. I think after seeing them so many times.
Would you ever put a book together or some kind of uh, collection of all this information that you're at
Yeah,
some point of?
I get asked that question a lot. I would love to do that at some point, but I think right now my focus is on getting to the places while they're still there, because a book
Mhm.
I envision taking up a lot of time, and I feel like my time is better spent going to these places while they're still there, because as I
Yeah,
said before, so many are disappearing. And then when I can't move around anymore, then I'll sit down and maybe do the book thing. I'm not kidding
like
about the
like The Hobbit, you'll be like, I'm gonna write my journey, you know.
Yeah, well, actually, it wasn't the first trip after the pandemic, but the second trip I after the pandemic. It was the first trip I went on solo after the pandemic. I was going to go to Idaho, and I flew to Salt Lake City, and I drove up into Idaho, and the original plan was more or less to cover the state. But by the time I got to the northern end of Idaho, I realized I was making such good time I could do all of Montana. And so I basically, in the end, I did about 6 states. It was a 6,000-mile trip. And when I was done, it was so much fun. I think it was 234 theaters. That's a number sticking in my head for some reason. Not too long after I got back, I had serious trouble walking for a while. I was in that car so much and so intensively that, yeah. And I'm not getting any younger, so
Yeah.
yeah, but I think at some point the book thing will happen. It's just going to be a little bit down the line. Yeah.
So what characteristics do you come across? I mean, you must find like similar comparisons to theater owners or theaters or anything, any kind of parallels you might like
Well,
notice along the way.
I think for me, again, growing up in a very small town in Madison, Minnesota, and then now living in New York City, like I've seen the real small prairie theater all the way up to the palatial, movie theater. And so that's where I see somewhat of a divide, if you will. Like I love both of them equally. I mean, the United Palace Theater here in Northern Manhattan is absolutely gorgeous, and they've just started showing movies not all that long ago with Lin-Manuel Miranda co-hosting and bringing in special guests and kind of making a whole movie night out of it, and that's really fun. But I also like those small prairie theaters, the kind that I used to go to as a kid, right? So those hold a special place in my heart as well.
Now here's my interview with Cullum talking about the 8 Ball movie nights at the 8 Ball Saloon at the Blind Pig. We did this interview actually last July, on July 30th. Cullum talks about the 8 Ball movie nights, how it started, what kind of movies they screen, and all that kind of fun. So check out this interview. Describe yourself for the listeners.
Oh, well, yeah, sure. I guess we'll be a little more on point about it. A bit of an oddball, a distinguished nut, as the sticker my wife showed me from whatever food product she was looking at. I'm a longtime bartender. I'm getting to be a longtime dad as the years go on.
And you're wearing a shirt that says Pope of Trash with John Waters on it.
Yes, I am long-running film fanatic, basically going back to high school. So,
what movie for you got you into the love of movies? Like, was there a certain movie that you saw that sparked your interest?
It might seem like a trite answer or an easy answer, but the answer is still Rocky Horror Picture Show. It's certainly one of the most iconic cult movies that I can really remember watching, and it had a big sort of impact on my love of like weird movies, campy movies, cult movies, full into it to the point of like dressing up for showings here in Ann Arbor at the State Theater.
What was your character?
Dr. Frankenfurter.
Oh, nice.
There is a photo lurking somewhere of me in the mesh Frankenfurter outfit with the doctor scrubs on top of it. I sported those heels pretty well.
So yeah, can you go into detail of the 8-ball movies that you put on about once a month, and kind of where it started, but kind of where it's what happens today with it? Like tonight is Brain Damage and Brain Candy.
Kids in the Hall, Brain Candy. It's our This Is Your Brain on Drugs double feature. If you want me to get into the history of it, the whole thing started as really a group of friends wanting to get together to watch movies. My friend Samir, he started the Burnout Society Film Club just on the fun of starting something called the BSFC, and it was just us getting together as we would anyways to watch the weird movies we love. But because space at our tiny apartments were limited, the answer came in the form of a DIY sort of punk music venue called the Third Death Star that operated in town. My friend Jeff Jenkins operated that. Death Star had been doing these shows, but about 6 or 7 years ago, they were getting people together for these movie nights where they would, put in whatever and we could all sit around and watch it. Unfortunately, the Death Star, as many a DIY venue has suffered, was not meant to be for the long term. And so,
also like any Death Star in general.
Yeah. Although it was more rent than Rebels in this case. Once the Death Star wasn't an option, the idea was still left open, and we all were looking for an opportunity to do a movie night get-together. And so on the auspicious alignment of Easter Sunday and April Fool's Day, we, 2018, we decided to host a movie night based on that theme. So we watched Jesus Christ Vampire Hunter, and then we watched Monty Python's Life of Brian. It seemed like the best combination of those two auspicious holidays. There wasn't much of a rhyme or reason to it other than wanting to do it as a double feature. But very quickly, as I started, because everybody had fun, I had the idea of we could, because there was no show going on in the Blind Pig and that part was closed, the back hallway that leads up to the Blind Pig, we could take the benches and stuff out, put up a screen at one end of the hallway, and have seating so we could all...
This fits I don't know how many... It's
12 is pushing it. It's a
pretty intimate, close viewing experience.
Yeah, I've over the years tried to refine and maximize it to the best and safest degree possible. But I mean, it's a small space, and it works during the cold Michigan winters, but
that's what I like about the screens that you put on is that it doesn't matter. Like, you can't be picky about how you're seeing these movies. If it's in this cramped hallway or outside on a wall, it's a bunch of cult movie fans coming together and appreciating the good, the bad, and the ugly of like what you're kind of putting together as a double feature.
It sort of became my continued thing, where I decided to do it as a kind of an A-side, B-side affair, where one movie would be a more recognizable cult favorite, like things that aren't necessarily going to be mainstream movies, but still like a lot of friends and I would probably seen it, but we'll still love seeing it again. The B-side, and that's the one I always play first, is the weirder movie, the perhaps less seen movie, the one that I personally want to share with my friends. Like, you guys got to see this. I always make that the first movie we watch, because basically if you want the good movie that you know and love, you got to get through this first. So you got to do the time to get the reward. But usually it pays off, and frequently it ends up people have more fun watching whatever wild and crazy shit I put on first.
What's been some of the examples of double features?
Oh, so we did Idiocracy and America 3000, July 4th double feature. We had games like we were doing polls beforehand to see which post-apocalyptic future we could actually expect, the sort of Brondo future versus the platinum blonde barbarian women future. Depressingly, more people cynically went for the Idiocracy future, and that does seem to be the case. Yeah, geez, we've done like
the Zardoz one was perfect. I love that one.
So I usually don't try to plan these out too far ahead, but I'll go through my collection, find ideas to develop, and what I might do as a double feature, and then it's more sort of fun pun themes that I can build it around. Like the Return to Zardoz double feature, where we watch Fruza Balk in Return to Oz and Sean Connery in Zardoz. Spoiler.
Oh, that was perfect. Or what the Thanksgiving screenings you do every year? That's always a kung fu themed Thanksgiving.
Not just a kung fu theme. For the last couple of years, we've been doing Ninja Thanksgiving. So we gather to watch ninja movies. We draw ninja hand turkeys. We bring more food than usual, kind of a potluck situation.
And this past year was Ninja Assassin.
Ninja Assassin was the A side, and what was the one last? The other one before it? Terrible.
Oh, they were dueling ninjas.
Well, I think we did Ninja the Final Duel, and
they're on a roof, I remember, but I don't remember the.
Oh, that's Revenge of the Ninja. That's what we did. It was Ninja Assassin and Revenge of the Ninja. These movie nights, they take place every other week, and there's not we work within the benefits of whatever time we have, so I have to work when it's available to do so, and so if it rains, we get rained out, especially when we're doing them on the patio. So we were supposed to do it last year, and we lost a few of the double features that summer to a lot of bad weather, but so far this year, fingers crossed, we've had really good weather. I mean, the whole patio thing, it was an extension of the building next to us redid their the paint on their building, and the color they happened to choose for this flat color, I was looking into it, and it's outside of having that sort of off-white for screens, my understanding is that color is one of the next best substitutions in terms of something to project on. And it ended up working that I was able to get up onto the roof, put the projector up there. Everybody else is down on the patio, and we can see and enjoy it large as life.
Yeah.
But it took some arranging, took some maneuvering, but we got there finally.
We watched Xanadu, or just the most oddest imagery that's being shown in that alleyway.
Admittedly, we did one of the earlier movie nights. I posed as a challenge. I was like, okay, everybody, a lot of my friends, they love the sort of really goofy TNA heavy horror movies. My friend Lucy Smith, she got to a point where she had like a boob timer to see like how quickly into a movie they'd go before there was boobs on screen.
Yeah.
So I pose a challenge that if we could raise $300 to donate to a breast cancer research charity, I would make the double feature on the patio there the most like TNA heavy. In fact, we're watching Frank Henenlotter's Brain Damage this evening. One of the two that we watched was Frankenhooker.
Oh, nice.
And there's boobs aplenty in that one. I think the other one we did was Return or Hard Ticket to Hawaii. Andy Sedaris's TNA-filled romp. And during the screening of that on the patio there, the building next to us is another like music venue and club, and they have a patio also that's slightly above ours.
Yeah.
That's like it's got fencing and like floral arrangement, but you can still see over. And it wasn't supposed to be operating that particular evening, but I heard the guy that owns the place up there in the middle of watching Frankenhooker, and I think it was the scene where he's like got the pile of fake boobs and he's just trying to find the right ones. I could hear the owner of that building with his wife talking, and then I heard the kid. I was like, oh, well, they weren't there for long. I don't know what they saw or didn't see, but somebody might have gotten a education.
But the other aspect of these movie nights is the trivia that I think is, for me, it's the most competitive part of coming, because winning your wife's artwork that she creates, it sometimes is a treasure to be won. Because the only time I've ever won was the Chopping Mall painting she did of the robots.
Oh,
the
nice!
Robot. And that's the only time I've ever. Like sometimes it's like, oh, I need to win this painting. There's a certain.
Well, it's not
creativity sometimes.
It's not always my wife, although the crafts that she does is awesome. So intermission trivia, we do it between the two movies.
Yeah.
In theory, it's supposed to be a half-hour break, but sometimes things carry on. 3 rounds of 5 questions, and so the first round is about the movie we just finished watching. With luck, usually people have reasonably good points from that since it just played. The second round is about the movie that we are about to watch, which is a more recognizable cult movie. So hopefully people do all right on that. And then the third round is about the overarching theme of the movie night. Whoever wins each round, whoever has the most right answers out of the 5 questions in it, will win a movie from, I have this bag of various movies I've picked up from thrift shops, or these days it's when I'm trying to narrow down my collection and stuff, a lot of times it sort of finds its way into the movie bag. But they win a movie from the movie bag, and there's the good, the bad, and the ugly in there. Actually, I think the good, the bad, and the ugly is in there. Whoever has the most points at the end of 3 rounds wins the grand prize. And the grand prize is usually just a gold, because it started out as a kind of Willy Wonka-esque golden ticket kind of situation, but now we just used like a gold object, usually tied to the theme for each movie night. As a bonus, when possible, my wife usually frequently contributes crafts to it, but I've also hit up other local artists and stuff like that to get some commission stuff made. It'll be like, you know, a painting or a
the Zardoz doll.
The Zardoz doll. She also made a pinhead, like these wooden dolls.
They had a very like voodoo doll looking look to it, and I was like, I tried my best to win that.
The hobby shop wooden doll with like actual, like that was actual human hair that was applied to the chest and head of Zed. We did Monster Squad. So again, this is one of my wife's wonderful crafts. Like tried to mimic that jewel from it, and it actually had like a rotating light and stuff to it. And like usually, like people would have to be deciding, do I want to keep it, or the other thing about it is these gold painted objects you can turn in at the Blind Pig for admission +1.
And the trivia is not for the. It's not the easiest.
Oh, this is not Babytown Frolics. I spend upwards of minutes digging deep into Wikipedia and IMDb for the choicest bits of information on these things. You know, it's weird. I try to run these by certain people beforehand to like see if they'll fly, and I usually get a vibe if it's gonna be like too hard. But I mean, a lot of these movies, trying to find relevant trivia is really hard. So frequently, what I have to do is like whatever sort of tangent that I, you know, have to go to, whatever 6 degrees of separation is necessary to like come up with these 5 questions can be really hard sometimes, because you know, even with as hard as some of these questions are, like it could be so much worse if I was trying to like ask questions specifically on these like movies that nobody's seen. They're not familiar with the actresses or actors or directors or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I try my best to make it open. You know, I even throw in multiple choice when possible. But I mean, if you want the treasure, you got to fight for it.
You got to study up, and like the tiebreakers. Oh my goodness! Like the what's the Thanksgiving? What's the Ninja Thanksgiving event was
Ninja Thanksgiving. We did throwing stars.
Throwing stars, and because I tied, and we did do that throwing star thing endlessly, and
just trying to hit each other.
Yeah, and I'm just like, it's very. I mean, my competitive side comes out during that trivia, because like sometimes the prize is really worth winning, at least for me. But
tonight we got a pretty awesome. I've got my wife found this brain, because thankfully Halloween is on the horizon again, so all the cool crafts are coming out again. But my wife found this like brain light box that she was able to spray gold and like protect the like lighting part so it could still light up. It's going to be awesome. I also have actually season 1 of Kids in the Hall that the winner is going to receive along with it. So
nice.
When we showed The Carrier, one of the producers and one of the stars of the movie, like at random, just showed up. You know, these are meant to be like sort of local friend events, so we're not like sort of doing heavy promotion and booking guests for these. So it was like weird that they happened to find out about it and showed up to see it, and they probably hadn't watched it. So like I think they said they hadn't seen it since it like came out.
Wow.
And so it was really cool because they came and like answered questions afterwards.
The other thing that with the movie nights that I really dig is the posters that are created for it.
Yeah, that is
those are I don't know, those are incredible designs.
I've done a few of them, but these days a good friend of mine, Nate Higley, he's an awesome graphic designer. Yeah, like you said, the poster designs always come out cool.
Like the one tonight, I might try to take it if the one that's outside. Or
yeah, I think there's still a few copies around. I know my friend Dave's going to be gunning for one also. But he's a great designer. And I usually just have to like hit him up, say like, here's the movies I'm looking at doing, have at whatever you want to do, and they always come out like really amazing.
And then where can people find more about the movies that you put on? Where's the best place to find out more of the future double features?
Well, I mean, the best thing would be to come down to the 8 Ball on Sunday when I'm doing Day Bar, and you can ask me what I have coming up. But you can also check out 8 Ball Movie Night on Facebook or Instagram, and we have upcoming features as well as random posts about like what I'm going to be watching on the small screen during my slow day bar shifts to pass the time, and then
and those are just worthwhile coming down anyway to see Alligator or whatever you've chosen.
Those are usually a free-for-all because unfortunately, like as I mentioned, I'm a dad and I have a 2-year-old who turned out like he's decided he really loves taking all my movies off the just pulling them down off the shelves and then sitting down and like stacking them and playing with them as if they were blocks. So my entire movie collection that used to be alphabetized and sorted and very impressive and stuff is now just random. It was random piles, and my wife sort of got fed up with me, got black totes, like those tote cubes.
Yeah.
And so now my movie collection resides in there. So frequently when I'm just waking up and trying to get myself together for work, it's like, all right,
where are my totes at?
I'm gonna grab. I don't have time to flip through these anymore. I don't know where anything at. I'm gonna grab like this movie, this movie, this movie, this movie. All right, I gotta go.
Can you name 3 movie suggestions?
Well, I mean, 2 of them I've got easily covered because we were watching tonight.
Okay.
Frank Henenlotter's second film, Brain Damage, from 1988, is 100% like one of my favorite Frank Henenlotter movies.
Yeah.
Kids in the Hall, Brain Candy from 1996 is still just hilarious as hell. It holds up wonderfully after all this time, even though like I was reading a lot more about the like background of making it and stuff, and the sort of distress going on behind the scenes between the Kids in the Hall, mostly between Dave Foley and the rest of the Kids in the Hall. So that sort of was a new, interesting element that I found out about it. But it's just absolutely one of the my favorite weirdo comedies. I love the Kids in the Hall's sense of humor.
And then your third pick?
And then the third one I'm going to bring up just because we were discussing again. It was a new addition to my collection, but it's from 1968 and it's called Candy. And I don't remember the actress's name, but the premise of this sex farce ish is this sort of well-meaning but naive and a bit vapid girl goes about all these adventures that has her crossing paths with all these sort of celebrity cameos. Like the list of actors that she encounters is surprisingly on point, but they all end up being creeps that are like so drawn to her that none of them can resist having her. So it's a sex comedy that is weirdly heavy in the rape sort of area, but it's not, a Last Tango in Paris It's still meant to be a farce, but I mean, some of the people she encounters is Richard Burton in this like crazy wig and playing this. Have you watched the Harry Potter movies?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I don't remember which one it is, but when Kenneth Branagh plays the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, I don't remember what his character's name is, but I remember he has that sort of pompous, like a bit between the theater professor combined with like an actual like actor, like stage actor, but like in a very academic professorial sense. So he comes in and like everywhere he's walking there's a fan like just off screen blowing his scarf flapping, and he's looking what's his name from Empire Records is another good example, Rex Manning.
Oh yes.
A very Rex Manning kind of character, but there's Richard Burton is there. She runs into Ringo Starr as a Mexican gardener doing this horrendous accent. Like, it's crazy. Then she runs into like Walter Matthau as a Cold War like anti-communism squad commander general that's like flying nonstop in case war, like the Cold War, really breaks out, and like she keeps sort of stumbling into these situations. The whole movie, some of my friends are cursing me for showing it to them, but it's just the wildest goddamn thing. For not like it's nothing super graphic or anything like that, but there's there's booze in it, and the humor in it is just insane. Like, it's this late 60s psychedelic comedy, but it doesn't, even for that, it's just pretty weird and out there. So that's one I like came across, like just added to my collection recently, and it's 100% worth checking out.
Okay, so Brain Damage,
Brain Candy, and Just Candy.
Nice. 3 music suggestions.
Okay, so this I actually had a chance to give a little more thought to, not too much, but I wanted to do something in theme for the evening. So the first song suggestion would be Leslie Gore's Sunshine, Lollipops, and Rainbows. There's never a bad time to listen to that song, and you can't have a bad time listening to that song, even if you're committing murder. Like, it's a good murder song.
Like, if you're putting the plastic down in your apartment, you're inviting your friend over.
Yeah, sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows, everything. That's a fun one. I would say White Lines for the theme of tonight, and I guess because it's the 50th anniversary of hip hop coming up. I believe that's the case. So that's always a classic. And I had a third one. We'll say for tonight's theme, how about Little Green Bag?
Oh, nice.
That has a good movie soundtrack connection with Tarantino, and is just a generally entertaining song to listen to.
So let's review those 3 songs again one more time.
So we got, I'd have to look up the actual performers, but Little Green Bag.
Yep, that's the third one.
White Lines.
2.
And then Sunshine, Lollipops, and Rainbows.
Number
That
1
I know by heart is Leslie Gore.
Yeah, sweet. So the final question is, what do you think of pineapple on pizza?
Oh, I'm fine with it. Like, I mean, there's as long as it isn't olives or tomatoes, I'm generally pretty cool with trying new things. But I'm pro Hawaiian pizza. I'm pro Hawaiian.
Our featured musician this episode is Mirror Vein with the song Blackwoods.
My name is Mike, and I wrote a song called Blackwoods under a project I call Mirror Vein that I just started in last January. Because I had a project called Home Alone for a while, for like 10 years, and I did that all myself. I did all the instruments and stuff like that. Like I did the drums, the guitars, the bass, and then I sang over all of it. And so Mirror Vein is kind of an extension of that, but it's more of a DIY kind of like do it at home instead of I was going to studios and stuff before. So I'm trying to get my own little studio legs at home, just recording and perfect my craft. So Blackwoods was recorded completely in my back room, and I used my iPhone for the vocals on it. Like it's funny because if I isolate the vocals on it, you can hear my husband having a business meeting in the next room, just slightly under all the vocals. I'll have to send you that. It's really cool.
It has definitely like a Twin Peaks, like the song will be playing at one of the bars, and it just has like a David Lynch. I thought to me like a David Lynch creepiness to it.
Thank you. Yeah, it was kind of my homage to like dark wave, because I never really got into that. I've never really expressed it through my music. I've gotten into it plenty, but it was fun to be able to play around with that and not be like, okay, well, I have to be a metal drummer and I have to have metal guitars and I have to be tough. Like, I'm just going to do what I want to do. And so that's what that came out to. Like a lot of people say it's sexy.
It has that it's like a David Lynch sexiness to it. It's kind of a little creepy, but a little dark, but a little.
Yeah. It's probably the darkest song I've ever written, because I just gotten out of the hospital for a week and I was just going through a lot, and I just wrote that down in like 5 minutes, the lyrics to that. So
what are some of the lyrics in the song? Cue it up. What are some of the lyrics in the song to kind of cue it up for people?
The beginning is, my mind is broken and I like the way it breaks, which is just kind of me being in a little circular wheel with, not learning from my own problems and just continually doing the same thing over and over again. I don't remember some of the lyrics. I know it's just really sad.
Was there any kind of inspiration or like dark wave songs or anything else that kind of you pulled from other than personal inspiration or personal experience?
Not really. That song is kind of a reworking of one that I wrote. I mean, it was around the same time period, but I didn't know what I wanted to do with Home Alone. I ended up retiring Home Alone. But I was like, should I go in this direction with this project, which is Home Alone's all metal and stuff? Or should I just start over and do this? And so I was fiddling around with apps on my phone. And Korg makes a really good one called Gadget, and I can compose complete songs on there. I mean, really good ones too. The apps to do the instruments are just mind-blowing. So a lot of that started from that. It was just something I would do on my lunch breaks in the parking lot. And then eventually I had a whole song, but it's just a really stripped down version of Blackwoods. And then when I got out of the hospital, everything just kind of came into place. Like I had all the ideas, I just didn't know how to arrange them.
Yeah.
And then the song just took off.
Anything for Blackwoods that people anything else before we play the song that you would want people listen to, or a certain moment, or to keep an ear out for?
I like all the weird sounds I put into it. Like there's a really, it's kind of a synthy piece that comes in and sweeps around, and then I just hit the like 5 distortion pedals on it, and it just takes over the whole thing and then breaks into a really I was kind of going for like a David Bowie 70s-ish guitar solo sound.
Yeah, got the Bowie shirt on right now.
Oh, I was, you know what? I was just gonna wear one, and I changed it for a tank top because I'm kind of warm today. But I have his mugshot on a black shirt that my husband just got me.
That's cool.
Yeah, I was going for a real 70s really, you know, those like the guitar solos on Low, and they just don't give a fuck, and it's great. So I kind of went for that, and it just is unhinged, and then comes back to normal, and then just goes off again.
Yeah.
But yeah, the song I wrote completely by myself in like 5 minutes. After I wrote the lyrics to like 5 minutes. I recorded it with my cell phone, and then I just mastered the fuck out of it, and it really came out great. So this is Blackwoods by Mirror Vein.
else could there be about? What else do we want to talk about? Is there anything that you
No,
no?
there's no projects or nothing to promote for me.
No, nothing for you.
There's nothing for me to promote.
You don't have a sequel to a Pixar movie that hasn't come out yet?
No, nothing in the works right now.
Okay. How about let's just talk about like a Frankenstein idea that I have.
Okay.
So like, why don't we do a Frankenstein movie where it follows the different people that make up the parts of his body? You know, like how Frankenstein's like these sewn together monster.
Yeah.
So like we follow like the beginning of the movie, you don't know that like the guy we're following is going to be his arm, this woman's going to be his brain, and then they all die somehow, and then it's Dr. Frankenstein and Igor, his assistant, going around finding the parts, and then the ending of the movie is him coming to life. We end there.
Yeah.
But it's the different stories of following different people around.
I like that idea.
Yeah. But you don't know it's a Frankenstein movie until like the halfway point.
Yeah.
Because you're just like following these people around wherever, and then you see like how they made up this monster.
Yeah, that sounds actually very cool.
Okay, we're gonna write Ratatouille, the Frankenstein movie idea. We're gonna go see Alien.
Yeah.
And hopefully
We
got a long day ahead.
Year.
Long year, not just a day. This has been episode 5 of the FilmTell podcast. I'm your host, Tyler DePerro. I've learned the complete dance to Hot to Go, even though it took a moment for how simple that dance is. Our featured guests are Keith with the Cinema Treasures Instagram account, Column at the 8 Ball Saloon with the 8 Ball Movie Nights. Our featured musician was Mike with the song Blackwoods. Additional music was done by Wow Bob Wow and Jim Miles. This has been a FilmTell production.